Hey friends, now I don't know if you've realised from watching my channel over the years that I'm not actually the biggest fan of Microsoft Windows. Shocking, I know. But I have actually done videos in the last couple of years singing the praises of different versions of Windows. And you know, hand on heart, I will give Microsoft credit when credit's due. For example, Windows 95, I thought had a lot of innovation from Microsoft, and we saw things in there that are still present in desktop user interfaces today. Things like the start menu, for example, that, you know, is not only still in Windows, despite them trying to kill it off in Windows 8, but also pretty much every Linux distro that you download has got some form of start menu in there as well. And Windows 2000, I thought, was a very elegant and streamlined version of Windows, you know, for a Microsoft operating system. So there are certain versions of Windows that I've been impressed with over the years, but I think it kind of goes back to my days as a real hardcore loyal Amiga user. I used Amigas all throughout the 90s, up until actually 2001. So it wasn't until Windows XP came along that I finally packed up my Amiga 1200 and moved over to the dark side. Because before that, I remember seeing Windows 95 and thinking that Microsoft were finally catching up with the things that my Amiga could do, admittedly using 4 times the RAM and 4 times the storage capacity. But before that, I mean, you know, I thought Windows 3.1 was a complete joke compared to Amiga OS. But in the time since then, I mean, you know, I was that teenager that had the Intel outside desktop wallpaper on my Amiga. I shared this GIF behind me with various friends on the early web, I'm sure. But I've admitted the fact that I do need to use Windows for work purposes, and that is the case for many of us. And I think generally, if you're a Windows user, you kind of use it by default because there are programs on there that you have to use. I've never really met anyone that uses Windows because they're a fan of it or they enjoy using it. And looking around my house, I mean, I've got one Windows machine, which is the one behind me, running Windows 10, that I've got various work applications on there that only work with Windows. Apart from that, I've got 6 current Macs around the house. I edit all my videos on this M1 Mac Mini next to me, which works great. I have about 4 or 5 Linux machines as well in various rooms of the house. So really, I'm not much of a Windows user these days. And maybe you're the same and you're thinking, how can I get away from using Windows in 2021? Well, obviously we have things like Linux with Wine in there, where you can run, with various degrees of success, different Windows-only applications. But also there is a drop-in open source Windows replacement operating system that's actually been in development since the mid-90s called ReactOS. So I haven't really given it a test drive for a while, so I thought in this video we'd download the latest version of ReactOS and find out how well it works as a Windows replacement in 2021. Now, just before we get into it, I wanted to take a quick moment to give a big thank you to this video's sponsor, the amazing TotalAV antivirus. Now, TotalAV is an award-winning product trusted by millions of people around the world that protects your computer, be it a PC or a Mac, or even your smartphone, from the bad guys. And as well as being safe from malware, spyware and viruses, it also encrypts your data and has a VPN included, which will protect you from phishing sites and your data being stolen when you're on places like coffee shop and airport Wi-Fi. And that risk is actually very real, because I remember being in a hotel in London with a few friends, and we're all connected to the hotel Wi-Fi, and one of the guys in our group being horrified that we could actually see all of his files, his documents, his pictures shared on the hotel's Wi-Fi, and anybody had access to them, and he wasn't the only one. I did make the hotel aware of it, but you know, they either didn't understand or just weren't interested in securing their network. But using TotalAV's VPN, that will tunnel traffic through their secure servers and make sure all your devices are fully protected, whichever network you're connected to. And so you can get protected today, I've actually managed to get you the most amazing discount that's going to save you a massive 70% off an annual subscription of TotalAV, meaning you will get it for just £29, and that includes the VPN service. So claim that offer right now by heading to the link which you'll find in this video's description, and of course help out the channel by supporting our sponsors, and a big thank you to TotalAV for sponsoring this video. Okay, so before we get stuck in downloading and installing ReactOS, I thought I'd give you a quick bit of background on the project. As I mentioned, it started all the way back in 1996, originally under the name FreeWin95. And as that suggests, it was originally aiming to be a drop-in replacement for Windows 95. And over the years, the name was changed to ReactOS, and they expanded the aims of the project to instead duplicate the functionality of Windows NT, which of course forms the basis of all modern versions of Windows. You know, Windows 10 is actually NT version 10.0. And despite ReactOS having been in development for 25 years, progress on it has been pretty slow, to say the least. And all these years later, in 2021, it is still only in alpha state. Now, admittedly, that is rather slow. It's not completely unique in the world of operating systems. I mean, I could use this opportunity to mention GNU Herd again, but I got enough hate about that in the last video, so I will quickly move on. Now, the current version of ReactOS is 0.4.13, and that was released in April of 2020. But on their website, there are also nightly builds that are more up to date and include some newer features. Obviously, that might be compromising stability, but based on the advice I've received from the forums, it is worth trying the nightly builds. So I'm going to be using the latest nightly build for this video and installing it in VirtualBox to test it out. Now, I did have a PC ready to try ReactOS on physical hardware, but after burning a CD image, I couldn't even get the system to boot. And apparently that is not uncommon, you know, alpha software and everything. So after we've downloaded the ISO file, we can get to work installing ReactOS. All right, and here we are inside the VirtualBox Manager, and I've created a virtual machine that should have the ideal settings to install ReactOS. I've read these on forums online. I can put them in the video description if you're interested, but as you can see here, we've got 32 megabytes of video memory, the VBox VGA graphics controller, 2D video and 3D acceleration enabled, we've got the AC97 audio controller, the PC NetFast 3 net for networking, and now all we need to do is attach the VirtualBox CD image, and we should be able to boot from that and hopefully get it installed and working inside VirtualBox. And straight away we get this warning here, which I'll ignore. And as you can see, now we've booted straight into the ReactOS installer. And the first thing that you will notice about it is very reminiscent of the Windows installers from the era that it's attempting to emulate. Obviously, Windows 98 and Windows 2000 look like this, a kind of a blue and silver DOS style screen. So we'll go to United Kingdom, enter to install. And then we do get a warning that ReactOS is in alpha stage, meaning it's not feature complete and is under heavy development. It is recommended to use it only for evaluation and testing purposes and not as your daily usage OS. So there you go. Now let's have a look here. That all looks fine, accept that. Then we have the unpartitioned disk space here. So if I press enter, that should create one. And then we can select a file system here as well. Now we do have the ButterFS there as well, which I have used in Linux before. Obviously we are trying to copy Windows, as it were, so I think probably the fat file system, which obviously is in Windows, will probably be a better choice. I could be wrong, but we'll go with that and we'll do a quick format. And then it asks which directory you want to install the ReactOS files in. So, you know, normally on Windows you put it in /Windows, obviously. In here it will be /ReactOS. And then the installer is doing its thing, and yeah, it seems pretty quick. Install the bootloader, yeah, we'll do that. And there we go. We're at the stage now where we are ready to reboot and run it by the looks of it. So what I'll do is here, we also need to remove the CD image before we reboot, so I'll pause it, and then we can go to, just remove that. There we go. And that was really fast. I mean, I don't know when the last time you installed Windows 98 was, but I did that on a recent video and it took around 45 minutes. So yeah, this is way improved over that. So we'll try, it's a standard version of ReactOS. And you get that really cool logo there. And as you can see, the copyright date at the bottom was 2021. And yeah, this is very much like Windows 2000 with those, you know, nice gradients at the top there, which is, you know, definitely a bonus for me. I mean, I think Windows 2000 is probably my favorite user interface on any version of Windows. It looks really clean and really elegant, I think. So here we are doing a bit more setup by the looks of it. And they acknowledge the open source projects that we use to create ReactOS. You know, there are elements of Wine in there that I mentioned a bit earlier. Various other projects here as well, so we'll just skip that. And then we need to choose a product option, so we can have ReactOS server or workstation. So on server, the system will be recognized as a server. Private folders are independent from my documents. What's workstation? I guess it just means whether you want to do network shares by the looks of it. So we'll give it a try on server here. We can customize our locale settings. Yeah, that all looks fine. And then the keyboard, yeah, it's already on English. As you can see, it is cutting off the bottom of the screen here a little bit in VirtualBox, but I could scale it, which makes it all fat. So yeah, I think we'll just go into this for now, and hopefully we can solve that in the graphics drivers later. Yeah, keyboard's been detected fine. Reboot now for language. No, weird. Then we'll put our name in here. Yeah, this is almost exactly like installing Windows 2000. Even down to the weird name that they give your machine. An administrator password. I don't think we need that. Then my time zone is correct. Yep, it's very early in the morning here. And now we can pick a theme for ReactOS. Now it's currently on Classic by the looks of it. And that's cool actually that it changes in the installer, so you don't have to wait till it boots. We have Maizu, Luna. I think we'll go with the classic one, you know, that looks a bit more like Windows 2000, like I mentioned before. Yep, typical settings. It will be part of a domain. Yeah, we'll add it to my network shares, why not, in workgroup. ReactOS could not find a Wine Gecko package, which is needed for embedding HTML to work correctly. Okay, install it. Okay, now our first problem here, it looks like maybe I haven't configured the internet connection properly, or there are no drivers installed maybe, so we can skip that for now. Okay, now it's going to do another reboot. I am impressed at how responsive and how quickly we're going through the installer here. As I said, compared to those old versions of Windows, you know, this is flying. And here we go. We found a new device driver for system device. Yeah, that's very vague. Okay, tried doing it automatically. Driver couldn't be found. Okay. This one for the audio device. Okay, install automatically. Couldn't be found. Right, this could be because we haven't got a network connection working. But as we can see here, you know, we are on the ReactOS desktop, and yeah, wow, this looks very much like Windows 2000, doesn't it? Even down to the start menu there in the corner. Yeah, look at that. And we'll have a look through some of the installed programs and settings very soon. They have done a very good job at this though. But I wonder if, I did read that you can install the VirtualBox guest editions to get, you know, graphics drivers and audio working. And as you can see here, ReactOS is reporting as Windows NT version 5.2, which I think, what was that? Windows XP? All right, so NT 5.2 is actually Windows Server 2003, so actually a little bit newer than Windows XP. So hopefully we can install the guest editions from VirtualBox for Server 2003, and it should work. You know, if ReactOS does what it says it does and can run Windows programs. So I've installed the CD image there. If I go into my computer, and there you go, we can see it there. So there you go, that installed by the looks of it. We'll give it a reboot, and hopefully we've now got graphics and audio drivers working, and we can make it full screen. And there we go. The virtual screen is currently set to 8-bit color mode. I wonder if these work now. No. But we should be able to put it into full screen mode now, and there we go. It's not all stretched out, and we've actually got a decent display resolution here. So let's go into the same way you do it from Windows, changing the screen resolution and properties, and yeah, this looks identical. So I think we're going to settings. Yeah, we can actually put that up to Now I've got a 16:9 monitor, so maybe that would work. Let's try putting it in true color as well. Maybe 24-bit. Let's try that. Okay, so I've been experimenting with different screen resolutions for a couple of minutes, and unfortunately it seems that the only way that I can get the true color 32-bit graphics depth is by running it in 960 by 498 resolution, which obviously is a pretty low screen resolution in 2021, but if I change it to anything else, it keeps defaulting back to 256 colors and everything looks really washed out on screen. But actually, for the purposes of doing a video, 960 by 498 is probably ideal actually, because you can see everything I'm doing on the screen without me having to keep, zooming into different areas. So we'll stick with it for the rest of this vid and hopefully it won't cause too many problems. But while we're in the display properties, which again looks very, very similar to those old school versions of Windows, I thought we'd have a little look at what else we can change from here. As you can see, there are some of those themes that we saw on the installer that actually we can just jump right into from here without having to reinstall ReactOS. So let's see what those look like. Now this one is called Lotus, so if we apply that, as you can see, everything changes to this really dark theme here. The start menu, you've got that kind of black ReactOS logo in the corner there. And we have one called Luna, which actually I thought Luna might be similar to Windows XP, with rounded corners and everything, the Fisher-Price theme, as we used to call it, which was called Luna. But actually it looks a bit more like a kind of dark mode. We also have Mizu in there as well, or Mizu. Yeah, I do quite like that one actually. That looks quite modern. That kind of flat look that you get in modern versions of Windows. And there is actually one called Modern, which again, another dark kind of theme. I'm not a fan of really using dark modes, really. I generally prefer light themes in my operating systems, to keep me awake. But on this one, I think we'll go back to the classic theme. I much prefer that Windows 2000 kind of look. And we have some different color schemes in here as well, some of which actually look like they've been lifted straight from the old versions of Windows. Yeah, like that pumpkin. I do remember that one. Wheat. Eggplant, that was definitely in Windows. I think I did use that one for a while in Windows 98. ReactOS Classic, which is, a 95, 98 theme by the looks of it. Red, white, and blue. Cool. We'll stick with the standard one now, that kind of Windows 2000 gradient look. I've always preferred that. Screensavers. Now we have a couple installed. The good old 3D text screensaver. Running very smoothly. That looks very nice. And yeah, the lock screen one that you could have. Backgrounds, yeah, it looks like we haven't got any installed by default, but obviously, you can add your own in there. Let's have a look at the device manager. There you go, you can see everything is installed here. Our network adapter should be installed and working by the looks of this. So this might be a good time actually to see if we can get online. So I do think there is a web browser bundled with ReactOS. There we go, the Wine version of Internet Explorer, which I haven't got high hopes for, but I think there are other web browsers that we can run in here. And by the looks of it, is trying to load the ReactOS homepage and not having much joy. Let's try something we know works, Google. And by the looks of it, it is connecting to Google and pulling through something here, because the URL has changed, but we're not getting anything displayed in the browser. Let's try a really simple website. The old net.com, which is, a basic HTML 1.0 website, which again is not pulling through. I wonder if this is related to that error message I saw on install about HTML rendering, the Gecko edition that it couldn't install, because by the looks of it, we're not getting any HTML rendered in the web browser. We'll do a quick check to see if we have got network connectivity. So if we go into the command prompt, we should be able to do a ping to Google. And there you go, it's been returned. So yeah, we are connected to the network and the internet, so that is working. Maybe we can install a different web browser and get that working. Now in here, if we go to add and remove programs, that is very different to Windows, because as you can see, we do have a package manager here as well, where we can actually install third-party applications inside ReactOS. So that is something that you didn't have in the old versions of Windows. You know, the package manager, the Windows App Store wasn't introduced until I think it was Windows 7 or maybe even Windows 8. So we'll explore that and get some third-party programs installed and maybe get a new web browser that will render HTML in just a bit. But I thought we'd have a look at what else is installed here. I mean, if we go into Windows Explorer, as you can see, this is all very similar to Windows. We've got the C drive there, D, which is my virtual CD-ROM drive. And then the file structure, identical to Windows. We have my documents folders there. Program files are all installed here. The ReactOS folder. Let's try a few of those out-of-the-box install programs. We have, clones of Notepad and Paint. There you go, Paint looks extremely similar to Windows, virtually no difference there. Same with Notepad. The calculator, which again, as you'd expect, looks like the Windows 2000 version of the Windows calculator. WordPad. Yeah, I forgot there used to be like, is that still in Windows now? I know Notepad's in there, but WordPad was a bit more fully featured. And I remember, couldn't this load Windows? Couldn't it load Microsoft Office files in here as well? Stuff that was saved with Word? I remember it being a lot more fully featured than Notepad, for example, all the different, toolbars here that we've got and the different fonts and everything. Yeah, I'd forgotten about WordPad. And there are quite a lot of fonts installed by default. Again, all the ones you would have got on earlier versions of Windows by the looks of it. Administrative tools, again, same as Windows. We've got a few games in here. I mean, yeah, come on. They had to install Solitaire, didn't they? The amount of hours that were wasted in offices all across the world playing Solitaire back in the day. I think I saw a version of Minesweeper there as well. Yeah, Wine Mine. Again, the version that you get with Wine by the looks of it. And Spider Solitaire. Yeah, different version of Solitaire. I must admit, I was never a Solitaire player, so I don't really know my way around it. So yeah, not really a lot to it, as you get with a stock Windows 2000 install, everything that we kind of need to get us set up and going is installed. But we'll try installing a few of these third-party applications now. Now, 7-zip is something that I always install in Windows straight away, so we'll get that. AbiWord, which a snappy and open source word processor. I have used that before. I think it is like an open source version or clone of Microsoft Word. Adobe Air, yeah, I don't think we need that one. The AC97 audio driver, but I think by the looks of it, the audio appears to be working anyway, so we'll skip that one. Flash, yeah, we don't need that. AOL Instant Messenger. Yeah, some of these actually do date this software, don't they? I mean, I can't remember the last time I spoke to anyone on AIM, probably around 2002. And we have a CD ripper there as well, Audacity. It's actually quite a nice, fully featured open source audio editor, so we'll give that one a try. CCleaner there as well. Now, I imagine these are all older versions of these programs because this is obviously only working up to Windows Server 2003 compatibility. So the current versions, I imagine, that require, Windows 10 are not going to work in here. Hover. Love that game on Windows 95. We'll give that a try. Anything else we want? Oh, we've got LibreOffice there as well. That is obviously a fully featured Office suite, which will be handy to have. A few of the Microsoft Net frameworks in there as well. But I think the main thing that we need is a web browser. So by the looks of it, the latest version of Firefox that we've got in here is version 48, which is going back a bit now. What are we on now, like version 80? So I think for now, let's try installing those and see if they work before we get anything else. So we'll click on install here, and it will ask me where I want to install them. Yeah, in program files, same as we would on Windows. All right, so I've got to say, I was really impressed with the install process from the package manager. Everything automatically downloaded, no errors. It incrementally installed everything. And it looks like the programs I selected have all installed successfully. And as we can see, there are a bunch of them on the desktop already. So We'll try Audacity, the audio editor that I mentioned, which I have used before, and that appears to be working just fine in here. Obviously a little bit cramped due to the limited screen resolution. I haven't got a microphone or anything attached, so yeah, I imagine that's not going to work. But it does look like, you know, the user interface is working fine, and we can use the program, I imagine. So let's try something that we can actually demo on here. LibreOffice. Now this is actually quite a big Office suite, so the fact that they've got this installing and working fine in here, that I imagine has got quite a lot of dependencies, the Windows version of it, it's going to be a good test of it. So yeah, as you can see, we can make a document, a spreadsheet, a presentation, or a graphic. Let's try just the standard writer document. Okay, we have that weird blue bar appearing there. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not a LibreOffice user normally. Yeah, and that appears to be working just fine in here. Definitely usable. And I've mentioned it in videos before, I do use Microsoft Office 365 through work, and I use, you know, Google Drive, and I use Friend Office. But really, for the kind of things I do in a word processor, I mean, I haven't really used a new feature in Microsoft Word since about 1997. So I could definitely get by with using this for my daily word processing needs, no problem at all with this. The graphics have kind of corrupted a bit there, and I've made that a bit too big maybe. Yeah, so definitely we've got some glitching there. Oh, and it appears now. Yeah, it crashed. So I also installed Firefox here as well. Go away. Which hopefully we can now access websites using. So it is obviously an older version of Firefox, but it should still work with a lot of sites, I imagine. Yeah, I've not seen that user interface on Firefox for a couple of years. When is this from? About Firefox. Yeah, there's no year on here, but I've got a feeling it was at least a decade ago. Oh, there is an update available. Okay. And unfortunately, after installing the Firefox update, it won't run now. I get this error message here saying that a dynamic DLL couldn't be found. So I think we'll try uninstalling that and then not doing the update. I mean, I've checked, this version of Firefox is from 2016, so you know, it's not hideously outdated. I imagine a lot of websites and forums and that kind of thing would work fine using it. That was version 48 that I had. Maybe we can just reinstall over it, as it doesn't actually see it being installed on the system. The uninstall icon is grayed out, so maybe we can just install over the top of it. Okay, let's try launching again. And there we go, we're back to the version that we installed in the first place. So let's try a website that I know works. Let's try the old net.com, as I mentioned. And now we have web browsing in ReactOS. And as you can see, now this is a very simplistic website that's designed to work on older machines, a lot older than this actually. Works with, you know, 1990s computers. But as you can see here, really responsive. The rendering looks fine to me. Let's try. We will not do the update this time. Google.com. And again, you know, looking fine here. Let's try the ReactOS website. Renders very nicely, very responsive. So we're going to really tax it now by trying YouTube, which I haven't got high hopes for, but you never know. Yeah, and that's telling me that I need to update my web browser, as it isn't supported anymore, unfortunately. Like Wikipedia, I imagine should work fine. Yeah, so, I mean, it is possible to do basic web browsing in here. Let's try Twitter. As you can see, my Twitter feed is displaying fine in here as well. Again, definitely at a usable speed. Yeah, I was updating my Hue light bulbs a bit earlier. So I'd say, you know, in terms of web browsing, if you don't want to do anything too demanding, it looks like ReactOS has got that covered using this older version of Firefox. So that's something we can tick off the list of things that we need to do. And I've even managed to get Google Drive launching inside Firefox here. Now, admittedly, it is absolutely crawling and there are some rendering issues, probably because of the low screen resolution, but it looks like it is usable in here. We can create a new document. We do get the message that, oh, there we go. We've got our first blue screen of death right in the middle of trying to do something in Google Drive. Again, you know, like I said, it's alpha software, so these things are to be expected. So we'll do a quick reboot of the machine. And a quick reboot later, and we are back into ReactOS. So we did get Google Drive working in there, you know, slowly before we got the blue screen of death. So I think we can tick off web browsing. I mean, Firefox, even though it's a few years old, should do pretty much everything I need apart from video streaming. So quite impressed with how well that ran, actually. What else did we install in here as well? We did have a couple of games that I installed, including Hover, which I don't think ran the installer. It just used WinZip to place the files somewhere on the hard disk here, but I'm not exactly sure where. So let's have a little look around. Oh, there it is. We've detected you're not running in 256. It will still run. Yeah, we're running in true color mode, so that should be fine. And F2 to start the game. Well, no, I know how to play Hover. And again, that is running really smoothly in here. Actually nicer than when I ran this inside a Windows 98 virtual machine in a video recently. So yeah, these early 3D Windows games appear to run quite nicely inside ReactOS. So I downloaded and installed a bunch of different programs from the Applications Manager with varying degrees of success. Now, apart from the odd graphical glitch here and there, I've got to say most of them ran really well. And these are programs that I used to use daily back in the Windows XP era, some of which I still use quite regularly today. And a lot of the time, if it wasn't for the ReactOS logo on the start menu in the corner of the screen, I could actually forget that I was running ReactOS and imagine I was using Windows 2000 instead. The experience really is that similar until you run into something that completely locks the system up, which I've got to say happens a lot more when using ReactOS than it did on the older versions of Windows in my experience. But again, this is alpha quality software. So there you go, that's been ReactOS, just a little demo to kind of show you where it's at the moment. And to answer the title to this video, can it replace Windows in 2021? Well, obviously not. And really, to be honest, it probably couldn't even replace Windows in 2001 in its current state. But instead of, you know, usually when I watch videos about ReactOS, this would be the bit in the conclusion where the presenter ridicules a project and kind of rips it apart. I'm not going to do that though, because I actually think they are to be commended for the progress that they've actually put into this, even though, you know, it's been in development since 1996. People don't realize what a gargantuan effort it is to replace something like Windows. And when you look at Microsoft, and they've got 1.3 million programmers working on Windows 10, 800,000 designers and 2 billion people testing it out. And I know from reading the forums and comments from the ReactOS team, they are literally a handful of programmers, many of them doing it in their spare time for no money. So when you compare Microsoft's resources to ReactOS, the fact that they've even got to the stage where it is kind of getting comparable to Windows 2000, I think is a massive achievement. So I'm certainly not going to crap on them for the progress that they've made over the last couple of decades. Now, I do think as well that by the time they get to the stage, this is the big question I've got, not whether ReactOS can get to the point that it could be a Windows 10 replacement, but it's whether or not it's really needed today. And, you know, I see Windows becoming less and less relevant as time goes on, even ignoring the fact that most of us today do our general daily computing, if you like, using a smartphone. And then when we get into the office to do actual work, I mean, there are so many different solutions now. And even for the general user, I mean, if you watch my channel, you're probably the same. I've been my family's, you know, tech support for as long as I can remember. And it got to the stage where I was getting fed up of like my cousins and my aunties ringing me, asking me to decrapify their Windows laptop, you know, having to VNC into it and uninstall all these toolbars and crap that they've downloaded onto there. It got to the stage where I was like, you know, what do you do with your machine? And pretty much all of them were like, surf the web, do a bit of shopping on Amazon, go on Facebook, maybe write the odd document or email using Google Docs. And my advice to them now is, buy Chromebook. I think, there's no real reason for people to use Windows outside of a corporate environment. And even that, there are efforts out there, like, you may know that I'm involved in the FriendOS project, which actually takes the whole desktop file system and applications paradigm and puts it inside a web browser. HTML5 and JavaScript is so powerful now that, you don't really need a desktop on your hard disk or your SSD. And if you do want that traditional operating system environment, Linux now, that's come on strides in the last couple of decades. And I think when it gets to the stage when companies like Adobe, if it ever gets to the level where they're porting stuff like Photoshop and the Adobe suite over to Linux, I can't really see why anyone would choose to use Windows if the applications you need exist on something like Linux. So my real question isn't whether ReactOS will ever get to the stage of replacing Windows 10, it's whether it really needs to or not. So yeah, maybe some controversial thoughts in there, I don't know. I'd love to know your thoughts as well. Have you tried ReactOS? Are you a Windows fan? Do you use it because you enjoy it? Leave a comment. Thank you so much for watching this video. Just a quick heads up as well that I do a weekly retro gaming and technology podcast called the Retro Hour, and you can get that from your favorite podcast client. Ask your smart speaker to play the Retro Hour podcast, or head to our website, theretrohour.com. New episodes out every Friday, and we've had some amazing guests recently, so definitely give it a listen. And while you're here on YouTube, here is another couple of videos I think you might enjoy. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.